Welcome, my constant reader friends. I'm Tad, and this is Tad Reads Books and Stuff. All right, so let's do a reading update. Well, we are finishing up book 2 of Preacher with Graz and the GKBC for the Marvelous Team Up. 2 chapters in book 2, and then we'll be going on to book 3. We're doing 6 chapters at a time, so I guess 4 more chapters in book 3. So look for that in a week or so. And what else? I finished Rush album by album. This is the book that we will be talking about today. And I want to talk about something, well, let's do my July TBR before we get into the discussion of this book real quick. This won't be long, I don't think. I mean, I have some props to show and some maybe stories to tell. I know Graz is probably the only person that appreciates my stories, but I'm going to try to keep the video as short as possible. We'll see. All right, July TBR. So, in July, I'm going to focus on the supersize, super small summer reading challenge. Yes, so last year, Kim the Paper Traveler started this reading challenge for the summer months. And it was to read one book at least over 800 pages. That was a slog. I read Anathem and it felt like it was very difficult for me to get through that book, and it took me the whole summer. This year, they're doing, I forgot to tell you, also, the other moderators or team for this challenge is Graz from the GKBC and June from Livriomer. So Kim, June, and Graz are doing it again. This summer, it's called Super Size, Super Small Summer Reading Challenge. Made it a little bit easier. The super size book only has to be 700 pages. And then you're also going to read a super small book. That's a novel, a book under 200 pages. So I'm going to do it again this year. But I got to start off by saying Graz. Last year he did Jerusalem, and I talked to him and told him that I would be doing Jerusalem as well this year if they did it. This is Jerusalem by Alan Moore. I'm a huge Alan Moore fan. This book is over 1,200 pages, and I'm not going to read it. Yeah, Graz, I'm not. I don't want to be feel like I'm forced reading this book. 1,200 pages is a lot. I know it's dense. I know the type of writer Alan Moore is. I want to kind of just have this be one of my bedside books that I just pick up and I read as I go. Maybe it will take me months to read it when I decide to read it. I want to enjoy it thoroughly, and I know it's kind of dense and maybe a little difficult to understand at times. I guess you know how Alan Moore is. He can wander. So I'm not going to do it. Sorry, Graz. You can beat me up in the comments. I appreciate it. That's fine. But I am going to read The Name of the Wind. And I have this beautiful 10th anniversary edition. And it's got the red painted edges. There is some really cool imagery in this book. Nice drawings, if I can find one for you. Here we go. Yeah, Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I'll go on a rant about Patrick Rothfuss when we get to it. But what I'm going to do is just focus in July of doing this challenge. I'm going to read this book in July. I've already started it. I'm 125 pages through already. It's a fantasy, and I'm enjoying it already. I know I'm going to be able to finish this book this month, no problem. So we're doing that. Name of the Wind. That's for my super size. And for my super small, check this out, Graz. This is a book that was gifted to me by Graz. The Hardy Boys, The Tower Treasure. And this is, it says book 1 in the series. This is only has, 180 pages? 180 pages. And I had mentioned to Graz, I've never read The Hardy Boys. I know a lot of you out there have, and when you were young men, you enjoyed this series. My sisters read Nancy Drew. I remember there was a TV series. I did watch the TV series a little bit when I was younger, but I've never read a Hardy Boys book. So Graz sent me 3 of them. And thank you very much, Graz. I'm going to do it. I'm going to read Hardy Boys, The Tower Treasure, book number 1, as my super small summer reading challenge book. If I have time, I'm hoping I have time, I am going to get to Sister of Starlit Seas. This is the 3rd book in the trilogy by Terry Brooks. You can look at my videos. I've already done video on the prior 2 books, and I really should be reading this to finish up the trilogy because I'm a completionist like that. All right, all that out of the way. Let's get to Rush real quick. Album by album. What is this? Well, this is, let me give you the numbers first like I normally do. This was written by Martin Popoff. It was published in May of 2017. There's 192 pages in here. And on Goodreads, it currently has a 4.28. I gave it 3 stars. 3 stars because nothing special. And seriously, if you're not a Rush fan, there's no reason for you to buy this book. There's no reason for you to want to read it. I mean, there are some really cool pictures in here of the boys. If you're a fan, it's awesome. I will tell you that I am a fan. Let me explain to you why. Here's my story. So in 1980, the winter of 1980, my father passed away. He was only 45 years old, passed away of cancer. I was a young man, young boy, and it devastated me. It wrecked me. But my sister, my oldest sister, one of my older sisters, I have 5 sisters. Her fiance, I think at the time, was a musician, amazing guitar player. And when they came to the funeral, you know, the gathering that we had for my father, he did this thing. I don't know if you all have seen Almost Famous, one of my all-time favorite movies. But in Almost Famous, when the sister leaves home, she tells her young brother, "Look under your bed." He looks under his bed. There's like a travel suitcase in there. He opens it up, and it's full of records, of albums. And there's a little like note, you know, like a sticky note or something on it. I don't even know if they had sticky notes back then. That says something like, "These will set you free. Listen to these, it will set you free." And that's what Dave did for me. He actually, he gave me a little box, took me aside, and said, you know, if he knew that I wasn't doing well. He said, "Listen to this. This will help you escape." And it was a box, and in the box was a Walkman, my first like Walkman. It was cool as hell. And you know, if you're familiar with Walkman, played cassettes. You know, had headphones, and he gave me 3 cassettes that he had made himself from records that he owned. And one of them was AC/DC. So on one side of the cassette was Highway to Hell. That was came out in 1979. And on the other half was Back in Black. Came out earlier that year in 1980. Back in Black has become one of my all-time favorite albums of all time. AC/DC is not one of my favorite bands of all time, but that record is. Another cassette was Van Halen 1 on one side and Van Halen 2 on the other side. So Van Halen 1 came out in 1978, Van Halen 2 came out in 1980. That pretty much changed my life. That Van Halen 1 album, Van Halen's now became my 3rd favorite band of all time. And the third cassette was Rush, and it was Hemispheres on one side, came out in 1978, and Permanent Waves, which came out in 1980. And that introduced me to Rush. Those three, well, 6 records changed my life. Before that, you know, I'm a theater geek. I sang a lot of theater. I've been singing since 2nd grade. I was singing in choir and chorus, competition choir, glee clubs, things like that. But, you know, easier listening music. Kenny Rogers, Barry Manilow, Olivia Newton-John, my all-time favorite. But anyways, this changed me. I started listening to rock and roll. Before that, my neighbor across the street was always listening to Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith, blaring it out his upstairs window, and it was so heavy. I mean, Toys in the Attic probably isn't considered heavy anymore, but back then, it scared me. That kind of music scared me. I'd rather listen to Bay City Rollers or something on the radio. But yeah, those 3 got me in, and one of them, that got me into Rush. So long story, sorry about that. But this is really cool. Basically what it does is it starts right from the beginning, when Rush released their first record, and their first record was titled Rush. Now, the difference between this and all the other records, this was kind of just rock and roll. A lot of people said it sounded, this record and even their next one sounded a lot like Led Zeppelin. Kind of, some people even thought it was Led Zeppelin when it came out. But this was different too, because this has the drummer John Rutsey. So right here, I don't know if you can see him really well, is John Rutsey. He was actually the first drummer for, there he is, here's another picture of him. Had some issues, drugs and alcohol. But he was the actual first drummer for Rush. Then of course, in the second record, Fly By Night, well, Neil Peart comes in. So we've got Geddy Lee on bass and vocals, lead vocals mostly. Neil Peart now on drums. Neil Peart also was the lyricist. He wrote all the lyrics for their records, their songs. And Alex Lifeson, of course, the guitar player and vocals as well. But yeah, so what this does is it goes through each studio album in order. And it explains a little bit about the album, and then it brings in some famous people like Kirk Hammett, you know, the guitar player for Metallica, and some other people, some Voivod, and some famous writers and things, to just tell some, that they ask them about the questions about each song, they discuss it. So that's where it let me down a little bit. I was more looking for some really cool, like, behind the scenes stories and stuff of the band, and some amazing pictures, but kind of a lot of these pictures are kind of stock pictures, not some, you know, off the wall things you haven't seen. Nothing like the Amy Winehouse book, for sure. So Rush, the first album, that came out in 1974. Then we go to Fly By Night. It came out in 1975. Yeah, there's 20 of them. Caress of Steel. Now, Caress of Steel, Fly By Night, the second album, you can really hear them going into this progressive, getting away from the Led Zeppelin sound and going into this progressive metal. I think they're one of the inventors of progressive metal, if you ask me. So in 1975, Caress of Steel came out. That was really progressive. Not one of my favorites, but, you know, I started, you know, with Permanent Hemispheres and Permanent Waves. So then the third album, or the fourth album, is Rush 2112. This is where they really exploded, came onto the scene. I have Rush 2112 right here. That's not glaring. After I had this cassette, and I started to get a little older and have some money myself, my own, I started buying all these albums, mostly Van Halen, but all the Rush albums. So at this point, I've got them all. I'll tell you a story, but well, what happened was, I've talked about this before, I had a flood eventually. you know, years later, and I lost a lot of my records, and I lost all of my Rush records, and I had them all up until that point. So I'm trying to slowly buy them back. The OGs, the original recordings, are hard to find and very expensive. But I'm slowly getting them back. So I do have 2112. That was their fourth record. That came out in 1976 and really broke the band, especially in America. They're a Canadian band. Then there was A Farewell to Kings, came out in 1977. I like that album. Really cool. One of the things about Rush that's amazing is they've got these 20 studio albums, and they have this thing that they do where they're going to have at least one radio hit, sometimes two or more, but at least one radio hit on every record that they've ever released, it seems. And that's a feat in and of itself. Really cool. Again, some cool pictures in here of the band. So that was chapter 5. That's the 5th album. The 6th album is Hemispheres. And do I have Hemispheres? Nope. I don't have Hemispheres. I used to have it on that cassette. I don't have that cassette anymore. I don't know where that went to. But the 6th album was Hemispheres, and that was released in 1978. I like that album a lot, of course. One of my first, introductions to Rush. And then the 7th album, Permanent Waves, came out in 1980. And I do now own Permanent Waves. Really cool, evocative photo of this girl. They even have a picture of the actual photo shoot in here of this girl. Really, really good album. I love it. Here's that picture of the photo shoot of that girl on the cover. That's pretty cool. Then we have Moving Pictures. Moving Pictures is everybody's favorite. This, was immediately went gold, went platinum for this band. This just blew up. Of course, this has Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta, instrumental YYZ, which was huge, Limelight. Amazing, amazing songs on this record. I do own it. Yeah, Moving Pictures is probably everybody's most favorite record by Rush. Awesome, awesome record. That came out in 1981. Then we go on to, the band is just, they're actually starting to be more radio friendly, I think, even though, Fly By Night, all the albums have had, like I said, one radio hit. Some of their songs are 10, 20 minutes long. I mean, a whole side of a record is one song. They were a progressive band, but at this point they're starting to get a little bit more radio friendly with shorter songs. And of course, the next one came out, and before the next one, I'm just going to show you this one. I have Exit Stage Left. So between Moving Pictures and the next album, Signals, was Exit Stage Left. This is just a live record. This it's a double record. It's a live show. So it's not really a studio album. So that's not considered, one of the 20 studio albums, just so you know. The next studio album, number 9, this is my all-time favorite, is Signals. And this is fantastic. This has Analog Kid on it, Digital Man, Losing It, Countdown, just one of my favorite albums. But some people, sold great, definitely platinum, but it was getting more and more. They started adding keyboards, electronica in it. But here, look at the picture of Geddy Lee right there. Love playing his Rickenbacker at this point. His Rickenbacker bass, kind of like Paul McCartney, right? 1982, amazing album. Still my favorite, overall my favorite album. Grace Under Pressure. This is number 10. This is their 10th studio album, came out in 1984, and I was in the military at this time, and I had some more money, so I definitely, this is my all-time favorite cover art. I don't know if you, I hope it's not glaring. I guess I could take it out, but I don't want to. Anyways, Grace Under Pressure, really, again, a lot of people not into digging this as much as their earlier stuff because it is a lot of electronic music in this, a lot of keyboards. But I love this record. 1001 is one of my favorites. I love the cover work on that. So that was number 10, came out in 1984. Halfway through, sorry guys. Power Windows was next. I don't own Power Windows. That's Power Windows. I like Power Windows. Again, big money. There's going to be a hit on all these. All these also have one song that's just instrumental. Something that they did, but you can see even now here in Power Windows, you've got 5-6 minute songs, you know, where in some of these other ones you have some monster long progressive style songs. Power Windows is good. Not one of my favorites, but again, good album. Then we go on to, now this is Hold Your Fire. This is their 12th album, came out in 1987, and I gotta say, I love this album. This is what people say is more contemporary. A lot of Rush fans don't like this record because it's kind of laid back and probably dad rockish, people are calling it now. More contemporary style of writing, the lyrics, and the music. I loved it. This is where I kind of stopped. I had all the albums. This one I actually got on cassette, and after this is where I lost everything in the flood and lost all my Rush albums. So I kind of stopped even listening to them at this point in my life. They would still, like I said, have every album that came out, they'd have a radio hit. So even the next album here, we have Presto. Kind of cool cover here. It's a bunny, you know, Presto, Changeo. Not one of my favorites, but Show Don't Tell was a huge hit. Yeah, War Paint is cool, Scars is cool, Presto. I mean, there's some cool songs in it, but again, not one of my favorites, and I've never owned it. I never bought it. I've never seen Rush live, even though I lived in upstate New York, and a lot of Canadian bands came through Syracuse, you know, and New York. I never saw Rush. I wish I would have. Then came out Roll the Bones. Roll the Bones, finally, it'd been a couple of years now since any of their albums, I mean, they would reach gold immediately, but they weren't hitting, you know, platinum anymore. Roll the Bones hit platinum. Cool cover artwork. And I like this one a lot. I did like Roll the Bones. I don't have it, but I liked it. They're more mature, but again, some people said a little too electronic. They wanted to see some heavy, you know, some more heavy metal from Rush. And excuse me. The next one, the 15th record, came out in 1993, is Counterparts. I do like Counterparts. Again, still a little too electronic for people. People thought it, when they were kind of hinting that it was going to be heavier, and it just really didn't get there. It's got a couple heavy songs on it, but not really. But still, good. Again, good music. You can't deny the musicianship of Rush and their history, you know, in rock and roll for sure. Here's Alex playing his double neck. He liked to play double neck a lot on stage, mostly for show. Then Test for Echo. This is their 16th studio album, 1996. I do not like this record. Don't like it. Don't listen to it. Don't know what else to say about it. I don't like it. So I'm not going to say much about it. I don't listen to it much. The cool thing about this book is what I did was I went back and I listened to their whole, all 20 albums. As I read one of these chapters, I would listen to the album. And I hadn't done that in years, gone back and listened to all the Rush albums. I got to get a Rush shirt. I wore this Pink Floyd progressive. I had to wear something progressive rock, but I don't even have a Rush t-shirt. Vapor Trails came out. So, Vapor Trails came out in 2002. So you're looking at Test of Echoes coming out in 1996. Vapor Trails didn't come out till 2002. What happened? Well, Neil Peart, his daughter was in a horrible car accident and was killed. And the same year, his wife died from cancer. And Neil said, I'm done. I'm out. He got on his motorcycle and just drove. He went on a walkabout. He had to figure out why he was still here. So it took years. He just took off. Cool thing though is he did write while he was on his motorcycle traveling Canada and the United States. The band just supported him. They really didn't even know where he was half the time. He was just on his walkabout. He did write a book about it, which is kind of cool. He did finally come back, and they made Vapor Trails, 2002. This was his return, and it was a little bit heavier. Again, not one of my favorites. So most of these newer records just, I don't know, they weren't the same to me, you know. Growing up listening to them back in the 70s was totally different. Then we get hit number 18. 18 is not a studio album. I don't agree with the book. You know, they say 20 studio albums. I only say really 19. This is 18. Number 18 there is Feedback. Feedback came out in 2004. And what it is it's almost an EP. It's not really an album. It's short. It's 8 songs, and it's all covers. It's all cover music. So there's nothing original. I don't consider it a studio album. A lot of Wikipedia doesn't consider it a studio album. But in this book, they are considering it a studio album. I don't know. It was all cover tunes. I've never listened to it, so we're going to skip it. I'm sorry. Next, Snakes and Arrows came out in 2007. This is a little heavier finally. Finally, they've started going back more to their roots, and you can see even Getty over here got some gray in his hair. They're getting older. I don't like this record at all either. Not one of my favorites. I don't know what to tell you. Some acoustic on that. One of the songs was used in a movie, I Love You Man, came out in 2009, and that kind of gave a resurgence to Rush. People started listening to Rush again, which was really cool. But again, not one of my favorites. Then their final album, number 20, is Clockwork Angels. Well, I had it up on the screen. So Clockwork Angels is their last studio album. As people realize, Neil Peart has passed away from brain cancer, and we don't know what's going on with the band. Geddy Lee has said recently in an interview that he and Alex might be getting back together. They may do a new Rush album. They're going to have to get a new drummer. It will be their third drummer. But Clockwork Angels is awesome. Clockwork Angels is a story. So this is what they say is the first time that they wrote, you know, like a rock opera. Although, if you are a fan of Rush and you listen to any of these prior records, a lot of them have subject matter that tends to seem like it's some type of overarching story for each album. But they say this is their first one. And it's cool. It's called Clockwork Angels. It's steampunk based. When they went on tour for it, they had all kinds of steampunk imagery with it. I think it's interesting here. I don't know if you can see this. This is a keyboard, you know, kind of steampunkified on stage. Of course, Neil's drum set was all like copper, brass and copper looking with some cool designs on it. Really cool. The other cool thing about this is that there is a book and a comic book. I don't know if you can see this. There's a book and a comic book for this album. I haven't read it. I've seen the book. I haven't seen the comic book, but I'm going to have to get them. I'm going to have to read them. But I think that's pretty cool. So I'll have to get that. Yep. So, and that's it, guys. 20 records. Look at Neil here. Monster on drums. Just an amazing drummer. That's it. Rush album by album. Cool book if you're a Rush fan. I know it's not a lot to say. The writing isn't anything special. There are some cool people in there giving some, they talk about each song more than giving any kind of cool anecdotes or behind the scenes fun. It's a pretty straightforward book, but if you're a fan, it's great. All right, guys, that's it. I'm going to get into Name of the Wind and get going with my super small summer reading challenge. All right, if you found any entertaining value in my videos, please like, please subscribe, please leave me some comments. I love the comments. And until next time, peace out.